Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his breathing apparatus as he reviewed the files on his holographic display. The Galactic Council chambers hummed with quiet activity as representatives from 47 different species prepared for what many considered a routine first contact meeting. Earth's file glowed softly before him, displaying basic information gathered by long-range scouts over the past solar cycle. Primitive warfare technology, he muttered, scrolling through the tactical assessments. Nuclear weapons at best. Chemical propulsion systems. They should be grateful we're offering them protection. The Krell ambassador beside him clicked his mandibles in agreement. The scouts report they spend enormous resources fighting amongst themselves. Clearly a species that fears true conflict, compensating with aggression against their own kind. Zethkar nodded. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had seen this pattern countless times. Species that engaged in constant internal warfare almost always cowered when faced with real galactic threats. It was why the Galactic Council existed, to protect these developing civilizations from the horrors that lurked in the deeper regions of space. The massive doors of the council chamber slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Zethkar straightened in his seat, expecting to see the typical delegation of nervous primitives, perhaps wearing their finest ceremonial garments and clutching primitive weapons as symbols of their culture's honor. Instead, 5 humans walked in with measured, confident steps. They wore matching dark blue uniforms without decoration or ceremony. Their leader, a female with short-cropped hair and steel-gray eyes, surveyed the chamber with the casual assessment of a predator evaluating territory. The others moved in formation behind her, their movements precise and economical. Council members, the lead human said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without amplification. I am General Sarah Martinez, United Earth Marine Corps. These are my senior staff officers. Zethkar blinked in confusion. Marine Corps? The translation matrix struggled with the term, eventually settling on water warriors, before correcting itself to naval soldiers. The concept made little sense. Why would a species send aquatic fighters to a diplomatic meeting? Council Prime Veltar, a massive crystalline being whose species had mediated galactic disputes for millennia, resonated in harmonious tones. Welcome, humans of Earth. We are pleased to offer your species protection under the Galactic Accords. The galaxy can be dangerous for developing civilizations. General Martinez smiled, but Zethkar noticed the expression didn't reach her eyes. Respectfully, Prime Veltar, we appreciate the gesture. However, we're not seeking protection. We're here to discuss mutual cooperation between equals. A ripple of shocked silence passed through the chamber. Zethkar leaned forward in disbelief. Equals? Your species has barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Your weapons technology is centuries behind even our most basic defensive systems. That's an interesting perspective, Martinez replied, her tone remaining perfectly level. What exactly do you base that assessment on? The Krell ambassador activated his display, projecting Earth's tactical assessment for all to see. Your most powerful weapons are fusion-based. Your ships use primitive chemical rockets. Your soldiers carry projectile weapons that fire metal slugs. These are tools of a species afraid of true warfare. Martinez glanced at her officers. One of them, a tall man with weathered features, stepped forward slightly. Ma'am, shall I? Go ahead, Colonel. Colonel Harrison activated a small device on his belt. Instantly, every electronic system in the chamber flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the vast space in red warning light. The council members' displays went dark, their communication systems silent. Electromagnetic pulse, localized, Harrison explained casually. Effective range of about 2 kilometers. We could have made it larger, but we didn't want to damage your entire station. Zethkar felt his breathing apparatus stutter as backup systems engaged. How did you? Your scouts observed our public military capabilities. Martinez continued as if nothing had happened. They saw what we wanted them to see. What they didn't see were the Marines. She gestured to another officer, who produced what appeared to be a standard-looking rifle. This fires depleted uranium rounds at 15% the speed of light. The targeting system can track and engage multiple targets across several light minutes of distance. Each round carries enough kinetic energy to crack a small moon. The weapon looked no different from the primitive firearms the scouts had observed. Zethkar realized with growing unease that human technology wasn't primitive, it was disguised. Your shields, the general continued, are designed to stop energy weapons and deflect charged particles. Very effective against most galactic military technology. Unfortunately for you, kinetic weapons aren't energy-based. They're just very, very fast rocks. Council Prime Veltar's crystalline structure pulsed with agitation. This is merely technological bravado. Weapons mean nothing without the will to use them. Your species' constant internal conflicts prove you lack the stomach for real warfare. Martinez's smile turned cold. You think our wars prove we're weak? She activated her own display, showing footage that made several council members recoil. Cities burning, soldiers advancing through hell itself, humans fighting with desperate fury across dozens of different conflicts. We've been at war for our entire recorded history, Martinez explained. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to survive it. Every generation of humans has faced extinction and fought their way back. We didn't develop advanced technology because we're peaceful. We developed it because we needed every possible advantage to kill each other more effectively. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of emergency power systems. Your scouts saw us fighting with chemical weapons, biological warfare, nuclear fire. You interpreted this as primitive fear. You were wrong. Those weren't our weapons of last resort. Those were Tuesday. Zethkar's breathing apparatus wheezed as he processed this information. But, your internal conflicts. Our practice, Colonel Harrison interjected. How do you think we got so good at warfare? We've been training against the most dangerous opponents in the galaxy for millennia. Ourselves. Martinez stepped closer to the council platform. Every human military doctrine assumes we'll be fighting an enemy with superior technology, greater numbers, and more resources. We've built our entire military philosophy around being the underdog. What happens when the underdog has spent 10,000 years learning how to bite? Another officer stepped forward. We've analyzed your defensive systems during our approach. Your shield generators have a rotation frequency of 0.3 terahertz. Our standard kinetic round cycle at 0.31 terahertz. We could have disabled your entire defense grid before you knew we were here. We didn't, Martinez added quickly, because we're here for diplomacy. But, understand this, we didn't come here seeking protection because we can't protect ourselves. We came here because we believe in cooperation over conquest. Council Prime Veltar's harmonic tones carried a new note of uncertainty. You speak of cooperation, yet you demonstrate weapons. We demonstrate capability, Martinez corrected. There's a difference. You assumed we were weak because you misunderstood our conflicts. Let me clarify something for you about human psychology. She gestured to her officers, who moved with fluid precision to new positions around the chamber. Not threatening, but clearly tactical. Humans don't fight wars because we hate our enemies. We fight wars because we love our families, our homes, our freedom. The fact that we fight each other so fiercely should have told you something important. Imagine what we'll do to protect each other against an outside threat. Zethkar was beginning to understand, and the realization terrified him. You're saying your internal conflicts make you stronger? I'm saying our internal conflicts are the reason we're still alive, Martinez replied. Every species you've encountered probably developed spaceflight to explore and expand. We developed it to have the high ground. Every technology you use for advancement, we've weaponized. We didn't join the galactic community to hide behind your protection. We joined it to protect it. The emergency lighting flickered as systems slowly came back online. Colonel Harrison's EMP device had been precisely calibrated to demonstrate capability without causing permanent damage. The galaxy has threats you mentioned, General Martinez continued. Species that view peaceful civilizations as easy prey. You've built your entire defensive strategy around containment and deterrence. That's wise. But what happens when containment fails? She paused, letting the question hang in the recycled air of the chamber. You need someone willing to go where peaceful species won't go. Do what civilized beings won't do. Fight the wars that diplomatic solutions can't solve. You need Marines. Council Prime Veltar's crystalline form pulsed slowly, processing this new information. You're offering military alliance. We're offering partnership. Your species bring wisdom, technology, and civilization to the galaxy. We bring something else. Something you're going to need sooner than you think. Which is? Zethkar asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. Martinez's smile was sharp as a blade. We bring the knowledge that sometimes, when diplomacy fails and civilization crumbles, when the monsters come crawling out of the dark between stars, sometimes the only thing standing between peace and annihilation is someone willing to become a bigger monster. The lights came fully back online, restoring the chamber to its normal illumination. The contrast made the preceding conversation feel like a glimpse into a darker reality. We've detected unusual readings from the rim sectors, another human officer reported, consulting a device that had apparently been unaffected by the electromagnetic pulse. Long-range sensors suggest something large is moving through the outer systems, something that doesn't match any known galactic civilization. Council Prime Veltar's harmonic tones shifted to alarm frequencies. You have this capability? Long-range detection beyond our sensor nets. We have paranoia, Martinez replied simply. Born from 10,000 years of assuming someone, somewhere, is trying to kill us. Usually we've been right. The council members exchanged looks of growing concern. Their own sensor systems hadn't detected anything unusual in the rim sectors. What are you proposing? Zethkar asked. Simple partnership. You handle the diplomacy, the trade, the civilization. We handle the monsters. When something threatens the peaceful species of this galaxy, you call us. We'll go into the dark and do what needs to be done. And what do you want in return? The Krell ambassador asked suspiciously. Martinez's expression softened slightly, revealing something almost human beneath the military bearing. A galaxy where our children don't have to be warriors. A future where humans can explore the stars without constantly watching for threats. Peace through superior firepower isn't just a military doctrine, it's a dream. The chamber fell quiet as the council members considered this offer. Protection from a species they had assumed needed protection themselves. Alliance with warriors they had mistaken for primitives. The readings from the rim. Council Prime Veltar said finally. How certain are you of this threat? Colonel Harrison consulted his device again. 73% probability of hostile contact within 6 standard months. Whatever's out there, it's moving with purpose, and it's not talking to anyone. Then, perhaps, Veltar's harmonic tones carried resignation and something that might have been relief. This conversation comes at the proper time. General Martinez nodded once, sharply. Marines are always ready, Council Prime. The question is whether you're ready for what we might have to do. As the session ended and the human delegation prepared to leave, Zethkar realized that the galaxy had just changed in ways none of them fully understood. The humans weren't seeking protection, they were offering to become the protectors. And, from what he'd seen in those steel-gray eyes, that might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The Galactic Council thought humans feared war. The darkness comes 3 months after the first contact meeting. Ambassador Zethkar found himself staring at displays he wished he'd never had to see. The human predictions had been conservative. The threat from the rim wasn't arriving in 6 months. It was already here. Outer colonies Sigma, 7 through Sigma, 12 have gone dark, reported the Krell tactical coordinator, his mandibles clicking rapidly with stress. No distress signals, no survivors, no remains. Just empty systems where thriving worlds used to be. Council Prime Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with distress frequencies. The Great Mediator had spent the past 3 months trying to establish diplomatic contact with whatever was approaching from the deep void. Every attempt had been met with silence. The pattern is clear, Zethkar said, studying the tactical display. Whatever this is, it's not interested in communication. It simply consumes. The chamber doors opened, and General Martinez entered with her staff. She moved with the same measured confidence as before, but Zethkar noticed something different in her bearing. The human military leader looked like she'd been preparing for this moment her entire life. Council members, she said without preamble. We've been monitoring the situation. Our long-range reconnaissance confirms what your sensors are telling you. You're facing something that considers all organic life as resources to be harvested. A new display activated, showing detailed sensor readings that put the Council's own intelligence to shame. The approaching force was massive, hundreds of ships unlike anything in galactic databases, moving in coordinated formations that suggested a hive intelligence. We call them devourers, Martinez continued. Our deep space monitoring posts detected them 18 months ago in the Andromeda approach vectors. They're not from this galaxy. 18 months. Veltar's harmonic tones carried accusation. You knew of this threat and said nothing? We said nothing because we spent that time preparing, Colonel Harrison replied, stepping forward. Marines don't make first contact with threats. We make last contact. Another human officer activated a tactical projection that made several council members gasp. It showed the current disposition of human forces, and there were far more ships than anyone had imagined. Your scouts observed Earth's surface fleets, the officer explained. Approximately 200 vessels of various classes. What they didn't see was our deep space fleet. 1,200 ships, all constructed in the asteroid belts beyond our outer planets. All designed specifically for this kind of threat. Zethkar stared at the numbers. 1,200 ships? How did you build so many so quickly? We didn't build them quickly, Martinez replied. We've been building them for 60 years. Ever since we first detected signs of intelligent life in other galaxies. We assumed that if life existed elsewhere, some of it would be hostile. We prepared accordingly. The Krell ambassador's compound eyes focused on the human general. You've been preparing for interstellar war for 60 years? While still fighting amongst yourselves? We've been preparing for interstellar war because we fight amongst ourselves, Harrison corrected. Human military doctrine has always assumed that our next enemy will be smarter, stronger, and better equipped than we are. When we learned we weren't alone in the universe, we started building to fight gods. A new alert chimed through the chamber's communication systems. The Devourer fleet had accelerated, moving faster than previous calculations suggested possible. They would reach the core worlds in weeks, not months. Council Prime, Martinez said, her voice carrying new urgency. With respect, you need to evacuate the civilian populations of the next 12 systems in their path. Our analysis suggests conventional defensive tactics will be ineffective. Ineffective. Zethkar pulled up the defensive plans his people had been refining for centuries. Overlapping shield grids, coordinated fleet actions, fortified worlds that had never fallen to any enemy. These defenses have protected the galaxy for millennia. Against enemies that think like you do, Martinez replied. These things don't think like us. They don't want territory or resources in any conventional sense. They want biomass. They turn entire populations into fuel for their expansion. She gestured to another officer, who displayed horrifying footage captured by human deep space probes. Worlds stripped of all organic matter, their atmospheres drained, their surfaces left as barren rock. Beings that had once been sentient creatures, converted into grotesque biological machines serving the Devourer Collective. Standard galactic warfare assumes your opponent wants to win, Martinez continued. These things don't want to win. They want to eat. Every defensive position you establish, every population center you try to protect, just gives them more food when they break through. Council Prime Veltar's harmonics shifted to frequencies of despair. Then, what do you propose? How does one fight an enemy that cannot be reasoned with? Martinez's smile was cold and sharp. You don't fight them on their terms. You fight them on ours. The main display changed, showing the human battle plan. It wasn't like anything in galactic military databases, where conventional tactics called for defensive positions and measured responses. The human strategy was built around aggression and mobility. Marine doctrine is simple, Colonel Harrison explained. When facing a superior enemy, you don't try to match their strength. You break their strategy. You make them fight your kind of war instead of theirs. The Devourers advance in a predictable pattern, another human officer added. They establish beachheads, strip planets systematically, then move on. Their entire approach assumes their enemies will try to defend fixed positions. We're not going to defend anything, Martinez stated flatly. We're going to attack everything. Zethkar studied the tactical display with growing alarm. Your plan involves abandoning the outer colonies entirely. Millions of beings will die. Millions of beings are going to die anyway if we fight a conventional defensive war, Martinez replied. The difference is, our way, some of them live. Your way, all of them become food for an advancing nightmare. She pointed to specific system markers on the display. We evacuate every world in their path. Not to safety. That doesn't exist anymore. But to rally points behind their advance. Then, we hit them where they don't expect it. Behind their lines? The Krell ambassador's mandibles clicked in confusion. That's suicide. You'd be cut off from support, outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Outnumbered? Yes, Harrison agreed. Cut off, no? Marines specialize in operating behind enemy lines. It's what we do. The display zoomed in on specific human ship designs. They didn't look like the elegant vessels of galactic civilization. They were angular, aggressive, covered with weapon ports and armor plating. Our ships are designed for hit and run attacks, the tactical officer explained. Maximum firepower, minimal support requirements. We can operate independently for months while maintaining full combat effectiveness. But what's the objective? Sethkar asked. Even if you can harass their rear echelons, how does that stop their advance? Martinez's expression grew predatory. We're not trying to stop their advance. We're trying to make them angry. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Devourers operate as a collective intelligence, she continued. Their strength comes from coordination and systematic approach. But collective intelligences have a weakness. They don't handle unpredictable threats well. You want to provoke them, Veltar said, harmonics shifting to disbelief. We want to make them chase us, Harrison corrected. Draw their main force away from the population centers, into deep space where we can fight them on our terms. Another human officer stepped forward. Our psychological analysis suggests the collective will divert significant resources to eliminate threats to their rear areas. Humans are very good at being the kind of threat that demands immediate attention. Zethkar was beginning to understand the audacity of what the humans were proposing. You're going to use yourselves as bait. We're going to use ourselves as hunters, Martinez corrected. The difference is important. Bait just waits to be eaten. Hunters bite back. The tactical display showed the full scope of the human plan. Fast attack groups would penetrate deep into Devourer territory, hitting supply lines, command nodes, and staging areas. Meanwhile, the main human fleet would engage the enemy's primary forces in a running battle through the outer systems. The goal isn't to win a decisive battle, Martinez explained. The goal is to make this galaxy more trouble than it's worth. Force them to commit more resources than they can sustain. Make them bleed for every world, every system, every victory. And if they call your bluff? Sethkar asked. If they ignore your attacks and continue their advance. Then, we escalate, Harrison replied simply. A new set of displays activated, showing weapon systems that made the council members recoil. Kinetic weapons that could crack planets. Biological warfare designed to target the Devourer's organic components. Technologies that bordered on the horrific. Marines don't bluff, Martinez stated. When we say we'll make the galaxy too expensive to take, we mean it. We'll turn every world into a fortress, every asteroid into a weapon, every cubic meter of space into a killing ground. You're talking about total war, Veltar said, harmonics carrying horror. We're talking about survival, Martinez replied. The Devourers want to consume this galaxy. We're offering to make the meal so poisonous it kills them. An urgent communication alert interrupted the discussion. Scout ships were reporting the Devourer fleet had split into multiple attack groups, moving faster than anticipated. The invasion had begun. Council Prime, Martinez said, her voice cutting through the chaos of alarm signals and emergency communications. You have about 6 hours to make a decision. Evacuate the outer colonies and let us handle this our way, or try to fight a conventional defensive war and watch the galaxy burn. Zethkar watched as tactical displays showed the approaching nightmare. Hundreds of alien ships moving with implacable purpose, spreading death and consumption wherever they passed. Against them, the humans were offering their own brand of controlled madness. How can we trust you? He asked. How do we know you won't become as dangerous as what you're fighting? Martinez met his gaze directly. Because we're already that dangerous. The difference is, we're pointing it outward. She gestured to her officers, who began preparing their equipment for immediate departure. The Marines are launching in 2 hours with or without council approval. But it would be easier if we were coordinating evacuations rather than fighting around them. Council Prime Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with the weight of decision. And after? If you succeed, what becomes of this galaxy with humans as its protectors? Same thing that becomes of it if we fail, Harrison answered. The only difference is whether there's anyone left alive to find out. The council members exchanged looks of desperate resignation. They were facing a choice between certain destruction and uncertain salvation. In the end, uncertainty was still hope. Very well, Veltar announced. The Galactic Council authorizes human military intervention. May the cosmos preserve us all. General Martinez nodded once, sharply. Marines don't pray, Council Prime. We improvise, adapt, and overcome. If the cosmos wants to preserve you, it picked the right species for the job. As the humans filed out to prepare for humanity's first interstellar war, Zethkar wondered if they had just saved the galaxy or doomed it to a different kind of nightmare. Tom would tell which, but at least there would be time. The Marines were going hunting. Hashtag the Galactic Council thought humans feared war. When monsters hunt monsters 2 weeks into the war, Ambassador Zethkar stood before displays that showed a galaxy transformed into something unrecognizable. The neat, orderly charts of galactic civilization had been replaced by constantly shifting tactical overlays showing hunter and prey locked in a deadly dance across the void. Contact lost with Marine Strike Group 7, reported the human communications officer assigned to the council chambers. Last transmission indicated successful infiltration of Devourer staging area at Kepler 442. Estimated enemy losses, 43 ships, 2 processing stations, 1 command node. Council Prime Veltar's harmonic frequencies carried exhaustion. And our losses? Strike Group 7 consisted of 12 ships and 300 Marines, the officer replied. As of last contact, they were requesting immediate resupply and reporting minimal casualties. Zethkar stared at the numbers. 300 humans had destroyed nearly 50 enemy vessels and multiple installations against an enemy that had been systematically consuming entire star systems. Either the reports were wrong, or humans fought wars in ways that defied everything the galaxy understood about combat. How, he asked. How do so few achieve so much against such overwhelming odds? The communications officer, a young woman with the bearing of someone who had seen too much in too short a time, pulled up combat footage from Strike Group 7's final transmission. The video showed Marine forces moving through what had once been a Devourer ship, but they weren't fighting their way through corridors or engaging in conventional boarding actions. Instead, they moved like apex predators through a hunting ground they owned completely. Marines don't fight fair, the officer explained as the footage showed human soldiers using weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Fair fights are for sports. Wars are for winning. In the video, Devourers that had proven unstoppable against conventional galactic forces were being systematically dismantled by humans using tactics that bordered on the impossible. Soldiers appeared and disappeared using personal cloaking technology. Weapons fired rounds that curved around corners and through solid barriers. Most disturbing of all, the Marines moved with complete confidence, as if they had done this countless times before. The enemy relies on collective intelligence and overwhelming numerical advantage, the officer continued. So we break their communications and force them to fight as individuals. They use organic technology that adapts to threats, so we use weapons that adapt faster. Another display showed the current tactical situation across the galaxy. Where the Devourer advance had initially been an unstoppable wave of consumption, it was now fragmented into dozens of smaller forces, each being hunted by human strike groups. General Martinez's strategy is working, Zethkar admitted reluctantly. But at what cost? We're receiving reports of unusual tactics. The officer's expression grew grim. You mean the virus? A new set of displays activated, showing something that made several council members turn away in horror. The footage showed Devourer ships, but their organic components were dying from the inside out, consumed by something that turned their own biological technology against them. The Devourers use living ships, the officer explained clinically. Organic technology that grows and adapts. Our xenobiologists developed a targeted pathogen that attacks their specific genetic markers. It turns their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. That's biological warfare, the Krell ambassador said, his mandibles clicking with distress. Banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. The Galactic Accords don't apply to non-galactic species, the officer replied. And Besides, Marines don't follow rules written by people who've never had to fight for their lives. Council Prime Veltar's harmonics shifted to alarm frequencies. You're using weapons that could potentially affect other organic species. The risk of contamination is zero, the officer interrupted. The pathogen is designed to self-destruct after 48 hours and targets genetic sequences that exist nowhere else in known space. We're not amateurs. Zethkar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The humans were winning, but their methods raised questions about what kind of galaxy would emerge from this conflict. There are reports, he said carefully, of enemy survivors being taken prisoner. What is the status of Devourer captives? The officer's expression became carefully neutral. There are no prisoners. None? In 2 weeks of combat across dozens of systems. The Devourers don't surrender, she explained. And, even if they did, they're a collective intelligence. Any individual unit remains connected to the whole unless the connection is permanently severed. Capturing them just gives the enemy intelligence on our operations. Zethkar was beginning to understand why galactic civilization had never successfully fought this kind of enemy. The moral constraints that defined civilized warfare became liabilities when facing an opponent that recognized no such limits. General Martinez is requesting immediate council review, the officer continued. Intelligence suggests the enemy is preparing a counteroffensive, something larger than anything they've deployed so far. The main display shifted to show long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. What it revealed made Zethkar's breathing apparatus stutter with shock. That's impossible, he whispered. The display showed a structure of impossible scale, a construct the size of a moon, moving under its own power toward the galactic core. As they watched, smaller vessels detached from its surface like insects leaving a hive. Hundreds of them, each larger than the biggest ships in any galactic fleet. We estimate it carries enough devourers to consume every inhabited system in the galaxy, the officer reported. Our designation is Hive Prime. General Martinez is en route with the full human fleet to intercept. The full fleet. Veltar's harmonics carried disbelief. Against something that size? That's suicide. That's Marines, the officer corrected. There's a difference. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication systems activated with an incoming transmission. General Martinez appeared on the main display, her image transmitted from the bridge of the human flagship somewhere in deep space. Council members, she said without preamble, we've identified the source of the Devourer invasion. The construct you're seeing isn't just their command ship, it's their entire civilization. A mobile hive that's consumed multiple galaxies. Behind her, the bridge of her ship showed controlled chaos as human officers coordinated the most complex military operation in galactic history. Our deep penetration reconnaissance has confirmed the worst-case scenario, Martinez continued. This isn't an invasion force. It's a harvesting operation. They've stripped their home galaxy bare and come here for fresh resources. General, Zethkar interrupted, surely even human weapons can't damage something that large? Martinez's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Ambassador, you're still thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Marines don't fight big things by being bigger. We fight them by being smarter. The display shifted to show the human battle plan, and Zethkar felt his understanding of warfare collapse entirely. We're not going to attack the hive construct, Martinez explained. We're going to enter it. Enter it. Veltar's harmonics climbed to frequencies of pure panic. That's madness. That's infiltration, Colonel Harrison's voice added from somewhere off-screen. The construct is essentially a mobile ecosystem. It has infrastructure, resource processing, command systems. All the things Marines specialize in breaking. Martinez stepped closer to the camera, and Zethkar could see the predatory gleam in her eyes. The Devourers have spent millennia perfecting their role as apex predators. They've consumed entire galaxies because nothing they've encountered has been willing to become the bigger monster. And you're willing? Zethkar asked, though he dreaded the answer. We're not willing, Martinez replied. We're eager. The transmission showed footage from human ships already approaching the massive construct. The scale was incomprehensible. Vessels that dwarfed space stations moving through formations of smaller craft, like minnows among whales. The plan is simple, Harrison's voice continued. We infiltrate their central processing centers, introduce a cascade virus into their collective intelligence, and turn their own coordination systems against them. And if the virus fails? The Krell ambassador asked. Then, we detonate nuclear charges in their primary reactor cores, and turn the whole construct into a miniature star, Martinez replied casually. Either way, the threat ends here. Zethkar realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A species willing to commit civilizational suicide to protect others. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to ensure their enemies couldn't threaten anyone else, ever. General, he said, what are the odds of success? Martinez paused, and for a moment her professional mask slipped, revealing something almost human beneath. Honestly, about 30% for the subtle approach, 90% for the nuclear option. And your survival odds? Lower, she admitted. But that's never been the point. Marines don't measure success by who comes home. We measure it by what we accomplish. The transmission began breaking up as the human fleet approached the construct. In the static-filled image, Zethkar could see Martinez giving orders to her staff with the calm efficiency of someone who had accepted death as a possible outcome. Council members. Her voice came through clearly despite the interference. Whatever happens in the next few hours, understand this. Humanity chose to stand between the darkness and the light not because we're heroes, but because we're good at violence. We've spent our entire history learning how to destroy things that needed destroying. The signal stabilized momentarily, showing the bridge of the flagship as it prepared to enter the construct. Human officers worked with focused intensity, their movements betraying no fear, only professional competence. The galaxy will be safe, Martinez continued. Whether we're in it or not. That was always the deal. General, Zethkar called out. Is there nothing we can do to help? Martinez's final smile carried something that might have been warmth. You can remember that when humans went to war, we didn't go for conquest or glory or revenge. We went because someone had to, and we were the only ones crazy enough to volunteer. The transmission cut to static just as the human fleet disappeared into the construct's defensive perimeter. For 6 hours, the galaxy held its breath. No communications came from the construct. No signals emerged from what might have been the largest battle in cosmic history. The Great Hive continued its advance toward the galactic core, apparently unaffected by the human assault. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The first sign was the silence. The constant stream of coordination signals that had emanated from the construct since its arrival simply ceased. Then, the smaller vessels began breaking formation, moving randomly, colliding with each other in confused desperation. Something's wrong with their collective intelligence, the communications officer reported, staring at her displays in amazement. The cascade virus is working. They're losing coordination. On the main display, the impossible happened. The massive construct began to come apart, not from external damage but from internal systems failing catastrophically. Explosions bloomed across its surface as infrastructure collapsed and power systems overloaded. Then came the nuclear fire. A chain reaction of detonations that turned the heart of the construct into a brief, artificial star. The light was visible across half the galaxy, a funeral pyre for an entire species, and a beacon of victory for another. When the sensors cleared, nothing remained but expanding debris and the scattered wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's greatest threat. 3 days later, a single human ship limped back to Council space. General Martinez stood on its bridge, wounded but alive, addressing a galaxy that had been saved by warriors it had underestimated. The threat is ended, she reported. The Devourers are extinct. Their technology, their knowledge, their entire collective consciousness, gone. They'll never threaten anyone again. And the cost? Veltar asked, harmonics heavy with grief for warriors who had earned respect too late. 237 ships, Martinez replied. 11,000 Marines. They died making sure the galaxy would never have to face this kind of threat again. Zethkar realized that humanity had not just saved the galaxy. They had proven something fundamental about the nature of strength. Real power wasn't the ability to destroy your enemies. It was the willingness to sacrifice yourself to protect others. What happens now, he asked. Martinez looked tired, older than her years, but Her voice carried the quiet satisfaction of someone who had accomplished an impossible task. Now you go back to building civilization. We go back to watching the dark between stars, making sure nothing like this ever gets close enough to threaten you again. And if it does? Her smile was tired but genuine. Then, you call the Marines. We'll be ready. As the transmission ended, Zethkar understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The humans had proven that sometimes, to preserve peace, you needed those willing to embrace war. To protect the light, you needed warriors comfortable with darkness. The Galactic Council had thought humans feared war. They had been wrong. Humans didn't fear war. They had simply been waiting for a war worth fighting. And, when it came, they had shown the galaxy what 10,000 years of constant conflict had taught them. How to be the monsters that hunt monsters, so others could sleep safely in the light.